It's 9 o'clock.
Let the record reflect Commissioners Ibarra, Glacier, Hara, Nimberg, Woods Gray are present, and we have a quorum. Madam President?
Thank you. Flag salute, moment of silence.
Please join me in a moment of silence in honor of past and present members of the Los Angeles Fire Department who devoted their lives to the protection of our community. Thank you.
So we start, as always, with Commissioner comments.
Good morning, everyone. I just wanted to acknowledge and thank Chief Terrazas for participating in the African American history kickoff that the mayor has every year at First AME Church. And we've also had the pleasure of having Chief Hogan as our guest there also. And the pastor acknowledged them and thanked them for their service, which I thought was good. And we were glad to have them there because in the past years we hadn't had representation from our department, but the chief was there and everyone was very glad. And sometimes they still comment on the fact that the chief was there. So when I see people, I also attended the mayor's African American history program at City Hall, which was well attended. And the community seems to always appreciate that. They honored Dionne Warwick this year, along with Judge Cunningham and a few other people. It was, and the fire department was present there, so it was good to see them circling around to see what that we're safe. Thank you.
Thanks.
I had the pleasure of riding the bandwagon with Chief Flegel and at the Golden Dragon Parade in Chinatown, celebrating Chinese New Year's. And we actually missed Commissioner Woods Gray because she is now recovering from her respiratory infection. Interestingly, on the program they had Commissioner Gray and me listed as commanders. I think they saw COMM and assumed that stood for commander rather than the commissioner.
That's great. No? No? Okay. Thanks. Report of the fire chief now.
Thank you, Madam President. On February 8th, we had the kickoff press conference to announce that Firehouse World is coming to Los Angeles in 2019. We're doing that in partnership with LA County Fire Department and LA Area Fire Chiefs. We're going to co-host that event starting next year, where we will anticipate about 8,000 firefighters from throughout the country and some other countries outside of the United States. We are told that it'll have an economic impact of around $20 million to the local economy. But most importantly to me is that we get to showcase the LAFD to all these firefighters from all over the world. On February 11th, I did attend that first AME service with Commissioner Woods Gray, and a great event. I always enjoy my time there, and I used to work in that district as a captain at Fire Station 26. We always had a good relationship with the first AME church. And then lastly, on February 16th, we did a public service announcement shoot promoting Firehouse World coming to Los Angeles, and we had Harrison Ford volunteer his time to do that for us. So we're very excited about his support. And one more thing, tonight we have firefighter family orientation tonight, and we're welcoming the next class, and in that class there's 9 female recruits. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Moving on to verbal report by the department on significant incidents, February 6th to February 19th.
Good morning, all. Madam President, Honorable Commissioners, Chief Terrazas, City Attorney, and to the management and staff of the LAFD, and to our outstanding CERT volunteers who make us look good on a regular basis, I want to welcome you this morning. My name is Armando Hogan. I am the Deputy Chief in charge of our Operations West Bureau. And today I would like to share with you a recent incident that occurred in Operations West Bureau in the Bel Air section of Los Angeles. On Thursday, February 8th, 2018, at 17:27 hours, Operations West Bureau resources were dispatched to 10835 Bellagio Road on a reported structure fire. This was incident 1311 for that day. The first resources on scene found a large 7,500 square foot, two-story single-family dwelling home with very light smoke showing. Due to the size of this structure, our firefighters conducted an extensive search and faced huge challenges as the fire was concealed in void spaces as they looked for the area of origin, which was later determined to be the attic area. This is what our firefighters encountered after they made sure all of the occupants were safely evacuated. That voice you hear is mine, speaking with some of the members at the incident command post.
Sounds good.
The photo depicted here is Councilmember Koretz from CD5, who was on scene, and after the knockdown of this fire, he was escorted by Assistant Chief Guy Tomlinson, his Chief Deputy of Public Safety, and myself. I took the opportunity to share with him the tremendous efforts of our members as the fire was hailed to the area of origin. The photos I show you now are the home the next morning as our firefighters maintained a fire watch throughout the night right after our arson members conducted their initial investigation, and we monitored all possible hot spots. At the height of this fire, there were probably over 100 firefighters that were on scene. There were 2 firefighter injuries. Both were treated, transported to area hospitals, and were released later that evening. This home was built in the 50s, and an addition was added some 10 years ago. The cause of the fire is still undetermined, although when we sat down and spoke with the owners of the home, they talked about a loud noise that shook the house and that they had been having problems. They had a sauna up in the attic space in that area. So we kind of narrowed our focus there. So the belief is possibly an electrical fire that took place. An after-action report is being conducted to determine our challenges, successes, and failures. Thank you very much, and I'll take any questions that you all may have.
Thank you. Thanks, Chief. A report by the medical director for the same time period? Yes.
Madam President, Commissioner, Fire Chief, City Attorney. Corey Rose, Assistant Bureau Commander, EMS Bureau. Dr. Eckstein is out of town at an EMS conference, so I'm here in his place today. A couple incidents with of recent in Mid-City. We had an MCI here locally, multi-casualty incident, where we had, unfortunately, 2 fatalities, but we were able to save 2 people out of that incident. In West LA, we had another MCI, multi-casualty incident, where we had another fatality. And for whatever reason, we're seeing this increase in multi-casualty incidents, meaning that there's more than one person involved. And so in the EMS Bureau, what we're working on now, so we can continue the good work that our folks are doing, is putting together a PowerPoint, and we'll release that through Target Solutions just to make sure that everyone is really up to the speed that they're up now, and just continue to do that fine work and continue that education to perform which they're doing. LAX, most recently, our cycle team went on a patient. They were there within 2 minutes. Chest pain, and recognized immediately that the patient was a STEMI patient and was able to treat the patient and get the patient to a local STEMI center, cath lab, where they're able to have a very positive outcome. And then on another good note, just this last Friday, one of our rescues in the valley and light forces went out on a call, cardiac arrest. They got there, CPR, IV fluids, and defibrillated the patient. lots of medications, and things weren't going as well as they wanted. And all of a sudden, pulses came back. They were able to transport that patient to a local hospital, another STEMI center, cath lab with a good positive outcome. So it's a continuing education and the hard work of our people that really has good outcomes with the patients out there. So we're really proud to see that. And on another note, I would personally like to thank the CERT team for everything that you folks have done over the years, particularly over this last few months, where without you folks, we couldn't have had the positive outcome that we've had. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Actually, for the benefit of the other commissioners, STEMI stands for ST elevation myocardial infarction. It's a through and through transmural myocardial infarction, the worst type of heart attack, and there are only certain centers that are qualified to intervene and deal with these people, because you really need cardiac cath capability.
Interesting. Thank you. So moving on to presentations, and I think it's CERT today.
Good morning, Commissioners, Fire Chief Terrazas, City Attorney Ms. Iniguez, Eric Scott, Fire Captain Paramedic Public Information Officer. As you can see by this filled room today, the LAFD administration is excited and honored to recognize volunteers for their critical help at the recent historic wildfires throughout Los Angeles. Today we have members from the Community Emergency Response Team, Rio Hondo Fire Academy, Notre Dame High School, and the VA Los Angeles healthcare system that have truly exemplified a giving spirit. So we are particularly appreciative for the hard work that they have demonstrated for several weeks at the La Tuna Fire, the Skirball Fire, and the Creek Fires in Los Angeles. They established base camps, they assisted with supplies, they provided countless logistical work that then freed up our firefighters to continue to battle on the front lines. So just to mention a few of the things they do is, for instance, 800 lunches were delivered in 1 hour at the La Tuna Fire. They were fueling vehicles, and that allows our firefighters to be able to eat some lunch. They picked up tens of thousands of feet of hose line, and they even patrolled the base camps with fire extinguishers and put out small spot fires from ember casts. So they are truly a part of the LAFD team. And there's also one other name that was significantly brought to our attention, that his action is imperative in making all of this happen, and that's Captain Christopher Wynn. And that came from he is really behind the scenes making all of this possible, countless emails, phone calls over the night, putting together the plan to really make all of this happen. And he's very well received by all of these fine members here. At this point, we'd like to ask these members to please come up and join us, and Captain Ignoxic and Chief Nelson up here as well. So if you'd like to please stand up, we'd like to recognize you and just start to line across here, and then afterwards we'll take some photos. And as you do, we'd like you to know that your willingness to perform this community service of your own free will without having monetary compensation is truly admirable. And please know that we are all moved by your excellent example of selflessness. And we have multiple certificates that we'll pass out to you afterwards, but we'd like to read just one of them briefly. On behalf of the Los Angeles Fire Department, I commend and thank you for your hard work and commitment you demonstrated during the brush fires in December 2017. The citizens of Los Angeles and the members of this department are fortunate to have dedicated volunteers like you. Presented February 20th, 2018, Ralph M. Terrazas, Fire Chief.
Okay, I want to make sure I don't want to leave anybody out. So we have the CERT team, we have Rio Hondo, we have Notre Dame High School. Is that right? And the VA people. Well, I think we set a record for the number of honorees. We can't do what we do if you don't do what you do. And you don't do this, as was stated earlier, because you get paid. You do this because you have a passion for public safety and helping the fire department. So on behalf of the 3,500 sworn and civilian members of this great department, I want to say thank you. We're honored to have you here with us, And I'd like to invite one person from each organization, not every person. We could be here for a while. But if I could have one person from each organization come to the mic and say a few words, please.
First time I attended a meeting here at the Fire Commissioner's office was to honor Captain Stacy Gerlich, former LAFD CERT commander. I'd like to thank the Los Angeles Fire Department for creating and maintaining the CERT program created in 1985, giving us, the volunteers, the opportunity to serve our city and communities. Also, I'd like to express our appreciation for Captain Wynn, our CERT commander, and Captain Ignatzik, for the disaster preparedness officer, for leading us.
Rio Hondo, anybody?
Hi, I'd just like to thank you all for giving us the opportunity to help and to serve. Me, along with Class 89 from Rio Hondo Academy, we all graduated in November, and we just thought it was a great opportunity to come out here and volunteer and give back to the community, and we're looking forward to applying with LAFD.
Rio Hondo, guys, it's not going to hurt your chances to apply. We open for filing March 5th, and we're looking for females, qualified females. Okay, who's up next? We have VA people.
Hello. Thank you for inviting us here. I'm a public affairs officer for the VA Greater Los Angeles Healthcare System. And I think the best thing to just say is thank you. I think this is a real true example of partnerships, communities getting together. That's the city officials, county officials, and then us, the federal officials, all coming together for a good cause. And so we are happy to support you all. And I'm sure if you need help again, we are there for you like we did this last time. So thank you for letting us attend. And again, we're here to help. Thanks.
Thanks.
And last but not least, Notre Dame High School. Oh, they're probably all in class.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's take a picture, a group photo, and thank you all for coming today.
All in the back.
Make this happen.
marijuana today.
Thanks for being here. We appreciate it.
Nice to see you.
Great seeing you as well.
Thank you for getting my stuff back.
It could be the search.
Found it all.
Got it?
Yes.
Good. I feel better now.
Yes.
Now I can sleep.
Yes.
Marijuana?
Cannabis. Cannabis. It makes, oh my God.
Everybody's
People love it.
marijuana crazy.
All right.
Seems to be very popular
Is it with the kids?
with kids these days. I love that you think.
I know. I know I'm so funny. What are you talking about?
What time is the family meeting?
No comment cards?
No. And marijuana.
Okay. Although it's,
I forgot they're having a meeting.
they're downstairs.
So moving on to the agenda. Oh wait, are we back? Okay. Okay. So moving back to the agenda. Somebody move the consent agenda items.
Sure. Move the recommendations for items 4A through D.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And then 5A is report by the department on its role with respect to cannabis regulations. Anticipated staffing needs, including inspections and fees.
Morning, Madam President, Commissioners,
Morning.
Chief Terrazas, City Attorney Rafish. My name is Roy Sung. I'm the Cooper Manager in the Fire Prevention Bureau. Today we're going to give a presentation, 2 parts. I'm going to be talking about the implementation of the program, and Captain Damon Leach actually is going to be first off, just talking about the program in general, how it started in the state and kind of where we are now in the city. So, Damon.
Good morning. As Royce mentioned, I'll start out with what the state regulations look like and then funnel back toward the city of Los Angeles and how it affects the fire department. State regulations began with Proposition 64, which there's 2 important implications with that. One, it expanded the use of medicinal marijuana to include recreational use, as well as distribution, cultivation, and processing. And the second thing it did is it also created licensure for that applies both also at the state and local level. Now, with that state authorization, prospective businesses would be able to apply and get state licensure as well. Here in the city of Los Angeles, that authorization is outlined by 5 ordinances. Those 5 ordinances collectively define the rules and regulations, the taxation, the licensure process, and required inspections. As far as the fire department's role in that inspection process, in addition to conducting fire code inspections and ensuring chemical inventory compliance, it's also an opportunity for us to identify any processes or equipment that's in use that requires permits and approvals through our fire development services. It would also entail making referrals to building and safety for unsafe construction, as well as referrals to Department of Cannabis Regulation for unapproved and unauthorized activities that occur. We've been really leaning forward on this in anticipation of these ordinances coming in effect. We've sent inspectors to do some preliminary on-site inspections to identify the types of processes, the nature of the hazards that occur at these businesses, and develop a framework for inspection practices that we can implement, as well as the relevant equipment needs we're going to need. Some of the other things we've done is we've obtained approval for an inspection fee through the council. We've identified data that we need to collect so we can formulate some metrics that going forward will also refine our inspection practices, as also the impact that these businesses will potentially have on the city of Los Angeles. We've reached out to industry experts to see where the industry is going to be heading in the near future. We've also tried to quantify, based on past businesses that have held business tax receipts, in addition to those that have already received authority, to just how big this industry is going to be in the city of Los Angeles. I was at a conference last week, and industry experts have highlighted that LA alone will be a $1 billion industry in 2018. That's expected to grow to 6.6 by 2020. Additionally, we've also collaborated with other city departments, including the Department of Cannabis Regulation, LAPD, City Planning, as well as the Office of Finance. And so we're all on the same page and discuss relevant issues with fee collection, as well as relevant issues such as enforcement. Some of the issues and challenges we've come across, this industry is very new to the regulatory process for the most part. We had approximately 191 in the city of Los Angeles under the Prop D provision that have been operating legally under medicinal use. That's going to expand tremendously. In the past, they've been very fearful of regulators coming into their businesses, whether for the sake of regulation itself, security concerns, or even cross-contamination. Over the last couple of years, we've been to another structure fires where we've had fire companies enter into the buildings and discover the entire building is a grow operation. They'll have some fictitious business on the outside. We make entry, and it ends up being a whole different set of circumstances that we perceive from the exterior. I have a couple of slides that basically it will go through, and you'll see some of the hazards we're talking about. Okay, this is Weed Maps. It's actually an app, or you can go online and check it out. Seems like if there's a demand, they'll create an app for it. But all these dispensaries are whether legally or illegally or readily available. Okay, and this is Captain Brown. This is the video that needs to be played. Okay, this right here is an extraction that's taking place. It was actually filmed in New Mexico. And what's taking place here is there's actually they extract the cannabis compound, which is the psychoactive or therapeutic compound, out of the marijuana plant. The more common term amongst the industry is cannabis, because the stalks and the fibrous component is actually considered hemp and is discarded. But this is the component that's actually regulated. And they in this process here, it shows them they have a contraption set up. They did a butane extraction here, and part of that butane extraction is there's an off-gassing of the end product. Well, they were using a blow dryer, I think, to speed up that off-gassing process. Well, it's not intrinsically safe, and as a result, the entire room flashed. Occupants were unable to escape because the door is open to the inside. Here's some of the chemicals they used for growth as well as extraction. Most of these rooms are in the bigger, larger cultivation rooms. They require CO2. There's a fine line for the distribution of CO2 within the room. They circulate with fans, creates optimal grow conditions. They also use it in extraction processes, which are currently not approved in the city of Los Angeles. Here's the voltage they'll have, and this tells a little bit better story of what's going on here. This is a building. There's wire charged to 7,000 volts and surrounding this building. Obviously, that creates a lot of hazards for our crews. If there's a structure fire and that in the middle of the night, that's going to impede our operations as well as create safety hazards. Here's an example of unsafe construction practices. They have electrical outlets that are obviously overloaded next to water. On some structures, it's not even permitted. Again, multiple electrical hazards there. Here's the interior of a cultivation unit. You'll see the yellow bucket down below. That actually creates sulfur dioxide, which is a chemical that kills any mold that might be in the atmosphere. Extremely hazardous. There's a close-up. Again, chemical storage, illegal, unkept. I'm sure there's probably reportable quantities there, but just unsafe housekeeping. Again, they've modified their drain there. They removed the toilet, and they're dumping all their hazardous waste right down the drain. Here's the one of the exits. They fortified it from the back. This right here is actually a tent. It's considered a cutting room. So what they'll do is they'll take all their employees. Their responsibility is cutting and trimming the marijuana leaves or plants. They put them in there, put security cameras on them. That way they're able to keep everybody corralled in one area. Again, when the I don't know if you can see in the picture or not, but you'll see a cinder brick wall. So they basically have a false storefront, and back behind there is a grow operation taking place. And Royce Long will come up with present the second part.
So talking to Kat Packer, Kat's the Executive Director of the Department of Cannabis Regulation for the city. We're expected to have the largest cannabis program in the nation here. And that's really going to have a big impact on the fire department because that means obviously resources that we're going to have to put into that program. So with so many facilities, and by the way, that number, the city really doesn't know how many facilities are out there right now. At the moment, they're just talking hundreds, because that's what's coming through the application process for licensing. But talking to industry, there's going to be, we heard 2,500, 3,000 facilities out there. And a portion of those are going to be regulated, a portion of those will be unregulated. So they'll be operating illegally because we just won't know about them. And we'll find them through our inspections or, when the licensing process gets truly vetted, people that are actually licensed are going to be whistleblowing. They're going to be telling, the city about facilities that are out there that aren't regulated because they're paying all the fees and the taxes to the city. So it needs to be equal for everyone. So with licensing, obviously comes regulation. Department of Cannabis Regulation was established last year through Proposition M and through city ordinance. And the licensing process was established through ordinance as well. And during the ordinance process, we inserted ourselves as a fire department and made sure we had our part in there, and we were part of that cannabis regulation licensing process. So currently, there's also not just local regulators from the city, but there's also state regulators, and we're kind of working in harmony with them. So, the city can't issue a license for a facility unless they got state approval as well. So right now, the city, the Department of Cannabis Regulation is a very small department. I mean, it's meant to be very large at some point, but right now, I don't know the exact numbers in that department, but at last count, they had 3 or 4 staff in that department, and they're expected to process all these applications. So right now, that's causing a big backlog. The city is working very fast to get staffing for the department to help with that process, but it's going to be a lot slower than what the city originally thought that process would run. So currently, there's a report out from DCR, Department of Cannabis Regulation, last week, and the numbers are looking like they got 346 applications. They reviewed 272 of them. And when you have an application, you're applying for a license, and there's multiple different types of licenses. And you can have more than one license at a facility. You might have extraction license, as well as a retail and delivery, distribution. So there's a lot of different license applications that are coming in, so it doesn't really represent the number of facilities. Right now, they're saying there's about 100 facilities that they've approved, and it's working in 3 phases. And the first phase, as Captain Leach alluded to, is the proposition, the medical marijuana facilities that already existed in the city prior to Prop 64 kicking in gear on the 1st of January. So those sites get priority processing, and so they're the ones that are going through right now. So it looks like there could be a total of 191 in that first phase. The second phase will be all those sites that supported those facilities, those medical facilities, prior to 2016, January 1st. And they'll be phase 2. And so for that second phase, they're expecting anywhere between 200 and 400 of applications to come through, and that's facilities. And then after that, there'll be a phase 3, which will be basically everyone else that's out there if they're going to apply. And so that could be another 1,000, 1,500. The city really has no idea right now. So as far as the expectations from the city, this is a very kind of complicated industry. There's a lot of stuff going on in these facilities. We're walking into hazardous atmospheres because they use a lot of carbon dioxide to create an atmosphere where the plants will grow. And they have extraction at these facilities as well. There's concerns about contamination when we go from one site to another. So we have to be very careful. And there's also a lot of security concerns as well. So we just want to make sure that the staff are very, kind of educated on the program. We'd like to see staff stay in the program. And we'd like to see a program that's kind of stood alone by itself, like have an actual cannabis unit. And that's what the city would like to see as well. As part of the licensing process, we're inserted by ordinance into that process. So there's some pre-fire inspections that we'll be doing as part of the Phase 2 and the Phase 3. And that's expected to kick off probably around May, June. It changes a lot from week to week, actually. So there's going to be staffing resources needed for that here in a couple of months. We've already started doing inspections at the medical facilities even prior to the 1st of January. And that was our pilot program to kind of really understand what the issues were, kind of work out what we needed for staffing and equipment and how to get set up. And we met a lot with the city on setting the program up. And we reached out to other jurisdictions that were doing it, like Denver. And we traveled out to Denver, went to the conference out there. So we're doing a lot of networking, a lot of education just on our part. And, with that, we put in a budget request, through the fire department's normal budgetary process. And so what we've requested so far is 8 fire inspector 1s, 1 fire inspector 2, a captain 1, a management analyst, an admin clerk, and an industrial hygienist. And along with that, obviously there's equipment, that we need, just regular equipment that we need, cars, cubicles, computers, etc. But also, gas meters, training. So there'll be a lot of items that we need to get this program up and running, and we need a lot of support for that going forward. On Friday last week, the Rules Committee did meet, and I did read up on the website last night. The CIO had put in for 2 positions for the fire department. So it looks like we have 2 authorities approved right now. And so that actually helps us out a lot. They're just talking a little bit more about revenue as far as the budget goes. In early December, we've been working with the City Council and the Department of Cannabis Regulation to establish some fees for the fire department because it's hard to do all this without revenue coming in. And so in early December, we were able to have a $916 fee approved for the fire department. It includes an hourly rate. So it's basically 4 hours of inspection for the $916. Then we can charge an hourly rate after that. So there is something we can charge for the inspections. Also, too, coming up for revenue, the fire code, there's a state fire code changes that are coming through and will be effective on the 1st of July 2018 this year. And in there, there'll be fees for operational permits for CO2 or carbon dioxide enrichment, plant extraction systems. There'll be construction permits required. And so all those proposals and the fees attached with that right now, we've put together and it's heading down to Administrative Services Bureau. And hopefully we'll get that approved with the Cost of Special Services report. In addition to those fees, the Cooper also charges a fee for the hazmat program. That's for our Cooper inspectors to be out there. As far as doing outreach and prepping, as far as meeting with the city and the DCR, the Department of Cannabis Regulation has been getting building services, PD, and fire department together to talk about enforcement in the city. And I know the city's kind of struggling right now with that, especially PD. They don't have the resources, to put into this. We've been on board this whole time as the fire department. Building services too, kind of struggling a little bit. So I know that's one group in the city that the city's, having to work really hard with. We've completed a lot of training for our own section here. Been down to San Diego and LA County, obviously out to Denver for the conference out there. And every year we go to what they call as a Cooper conference. And the last 2 years, they've run a cannabis track. And so for an entire week, there's just cannabis presentations going on all week. And so we just had a couple of weeks ago here in San Francisco, and we had a complete team up there. And, we spent the week going through the cannabis track, and we actually presented at the conference as well. We had a complete panel there. So we had Kat Packer from Department of Cannabis Regulation. Inspector Steve Hamilton from the Bureau here was presenting for the Cooper and fire code issues. We had LA County presenting, and we also had one of the guys from the Jungle Boys, an industry rep that works in LA City here. He also came on the panel as well, talked about industry issues, what they're experiencing, and so it was a complete panel. It was called LA Rollout, and it went over really well. We had a pretty good sized room. There's 250 people. So that was a very good presentation. As far as other outreach, we created checklists for businesses so they know ahead of time what they need to do to get ready for this program. There's been a lot about licensing out there as far as the regulation, as far as the fire department is concerned. We've been pushing really hard to get it out, and then the easiest way for us is put this checklist together, put it on their website. DCR is putting it on their website as well. And it just helps businesses prepare as opposed to us getting out there for the first inspection, finding out that they've got all these things that, kind of illegal, and they need to pull them out or redo it again. It costs a lot of money. So we're just trying to help businesses out that way. We also run a Cooper workshop in the Cooper section twice a week, and that helps these facilities do their hazmat submittals. And so we're seeing a lot of cannabis facilities turn up for that. So that's a big help as well. And just one comment from Kat Packer, dealing with all these regulatory kind of agencies within the city. She did make a comment that the fire department seems to be the most organized so far. And that's a good comment for us. We feel like we're really engaged, and we've been talking with her, and meeting with her quite regularly, even in their offices over here for the last 10 months. So it's been quite a journey. But I think we've achieved a lot, and there's great things for us, and we just need to get that budget through and approved, and we'll be off and running. That's the end of my report.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Yeah. So did we regulate the medicinal ones when they were? Did we have a role?
The city wasn't actively, as a city, the city wasn't actively regulating those facilities. They were kind of operating on what they call limited immunity. And so, there's a bigger issue here with the federals, not allowing this, and it's illegal, but the state passed Prop 64 and made it legal in the state here, but the feds still don't consider it legal. And so they kind of were operating, by themselves. We were still going through as a fire department doing fire life safety inspections. And when this became more of an issue, with Prop 64 coming about, the Cooper program got involved, started doing inspections out there, and even as there's many Coopers across the state, and so the Cooper Forum Board had made this a big issue, and that's why every year at the Cooper Conference now there's a complete track dedicated to cannabis. So that's why we got involved at the very start there.
Okay, so all of these issues were there, but we weren't regulating them, right? Like the fire department wasn't.
The fire department was out there doing fire life safety inspections. We were out there regulating these sites. So,
okay.
Yeah.
I guess my question is if we were regulating like all of the toxic, chemicals that they were using, because that's what Cooper does, right?
Kind of both. Our job as a Cooper is to make sure that what they have on site gets reported to the state on that state database, and then we review that. So that's the hazmat side of things.
Yeah.
And the fire department's role is to ensure those hazards are safe on site, So there's two different roles here. I can't say that we inspected every single one of those sites as a fire department or as a Cooper. I believe there were fire station inspections for the most part. Most of them were pretty small. But certainly obviously it's a big issue now. It's turned from medical into recreational, and now we're talking about a couple of thousand sites as opposed to, like on the books at that time, I think theoretically, the number changes a little bit, but it was somewhere between 130, 150 sites that the city acknowledged that actually had what they call business tax registration certificate, which is most people know as a business license. Yeah.
Okay.
So when a business license is given out, does the fire department then go and inspect the business?
Not necessarily. We have our inventory of what we inspect, and we also inspect via referrals. And so even within the department, the stations may find, well, right now, the stations are finding cannabis facilities as they find fires or do their own inspections, and they're referring it to us. And then we go out and do a Cooper inspection. So it's kind of both. There's internal referrals and outside referrals.
I'm surprised we don't inspect businesses that get permits just to make sure the facilities are safe for people to be in.
I don't know that we have the resources for all the businesses.
Yeah, that's something I think that's we're kind of working on as a big project right now, is trying to look at the city's business licenses that they have, trying to work out which ones really affect us, which ones are regulated by us, and which ones aren't, kind of cross-pollinating those two databases. That's something we've actively been working on actually in the last couple of weeks.
So, just to clarify, so there's both a hazmat component and there's a standard life safety component in the inspection. Just like even if it was like a gas station, right? You guys wouldn't be there. The Coupa would be there to inspect the tank and make sure the chemicals go stored safely. But a different part of fire prevention would be looking for sort of overall life safety to make sure like the doors weren't locked.
Right.
And so it's the same situation here, just with an added degree of complexity.
Yeah, and with the changes coming through with the state fire code, which will be effective in July, there's going to be new changes, and it's more kind of stricter in a sense of the word. So
specific to cannabis-related facilities.
Well, it doesn't say cannabis, but they talk about. I can't remember the exact term. It's like agriculture.
I see.
So it could be tomatoes or cannabis.
Right. Any kind of a grow operation, whatever they happen to be growing.
Right.
And where does our responsibility end in like business and building and safety pickup? So like you showed pictures of like plug strips that seemed like those were dangerous. Would that be more of a building and safety referral, or is that would we cite that?
You know what? I'm kind of like the Cooper expert, but and not so much the fire. But let me bring up Steve here. Damon, do you want to answer the question?
Yes, anytime extension cords are used for permanent electrical wiring, that would fall under fire code, and we would cite them for that.
I see. But presumably you're working hand in hand with building and safety. If somebody sees a building and safety issue, then there would be
a referral to building and safety. Exactly.
Got it. And then on the enforcement side, you mentioned police being overtaxed. How are you going to deal with that? Like if someone does call in and say, hey, we have an unregulated grow operation, would be the first call would be to PD to say, hey, you guys need to go look at this first? Or if we sort of stumble upon something, then are our members, is there a protocol in place for how they deal with that?
Yeah, so that's being established right now. We've been meeting monthly with PD and building services and DCR to try and work through those issues. And I guess the best solution that we're coming up with right now is to use that 311 system in the city. So
our inspectors will call 311.
Well, so if we basically, as it's kind of complicated, but if we run across a site that's not regulated by the city, it's one of these illegal sites. There's a lot of safety concerns about walking into one of those sites. I mean, they've got a lot of cash on site. They don't want to see us. They don't want to see anyone that might want to take their cash or whatever, right? Says there's a lot of dangers associated. We don't want our inspectors walking into those sites. And if they're not on the list of sites that are being regulated, that's a referral to PD. And just for accountability, we feel like, as a group, when we'll be meeting, it's best to use this 311 as a referral system. So it's all in the same database. So I can see, okay, I submitted 10 referrals this month and they're sitting there in that database, as opposed to I called someone at PD and gave it to them, and it falls into a black hole and you never hear about it again. So that's kind of the way that the referral system hopefully will work.
I could probably add a little bit more to the referral system as well. What we're trying to do is create an internal referral system so our folks can refer to a central location, which would be in the Fire Prevention Bureau. And then we would in turn refer it to my LA 311. And they're working on a platform to disseminate the information to all interested parties. So whether it be LAPD, Building and Safety, Departments of Cannabis Regulation. So we would have hands on it before it left the fire department.
I think presumably that would be trackable, so we could see what was referred and what had been acted upon. And
exactly what we stumbled across as far as inspection, whether it be in addition to emergency incidents involving hazmat, medical, fire, or whatever. So we can kind of start collecting that information And like I said, make sure it gets to all the interested parties, because that framework isn't really built out yet. But we, as the fire department, we still want to be able to collect that information until it gets put in place.
Okay, so are there, just with regard to safety, are we taking a cautious approach then on this for now? Just make sure we're not wandering into a hazardous situation that might present a serious safety concern?
Yeah, just in coordination with the Department of Cannabis and PD, we're really just working off their sites that are currently licensed by the city or about to be licensed.
Right.
So, and they have a database that we have access to. It's online; everyone can see it.
Got it.
And
So we wouldn't wander into an unlicensed facility at this point.
not knowingly, but we do sometimes. Especially the stations will walk into them when they're just doing the regular inspections, or if they run to them during a fire, and then we'll get the referrals from them.
Got it. And is this maybe a question for EOPS, but is there some additional training or equipment for our folks in the field as we start to see more of these kinds of issues? Is that something that's being worked into?
Al Poyer, Deputy Chief Emergency Operations, for the record. Yes, to answer your question about training, we have training bulletins that specifically deal with this topic, and we have other departmental reference material dealing with this. But as the industry evolves, of course, our training and our deliveries will evolve as well.
Okay, thanks.
But have the inspectors already been trained to do this?
So we started a pilot program 6-7 months ago, and we've been through about 30 of these cannabis sites already just to see what the issues are. And so apart from just going, traveling around and meeting with different enforcement agencies, seeing what their issues were, we got a list of our own. So, and then we created our own training program. And so this program is going to evolve into something, and then we'll be ready to provide that training to the new inspectors.
Should the citizens also use 311 to help to call in? Because many times in the neighborhoods, people see things that, and I have to give accolades to the city attorney's office, because this is what Mike Fuhrer has been working with for a number of years, and I know he shut down over 1,000 plus cannabis operations that were illegal. He's really been doing a great job in neighborhoods with that. Many times the neighbors know what's happening in neighborhoods and no one else does. So they could actually use the 311 system, would they call that?
Yeah,
as opposed to
absolutely.
calling the fire department, the police.
Yeah, that's preferable too, actually, for citizens. I mean, obviously we'll still take the call, but that's the common database that everyone will be using going forward.
I think of that because Mike Fuhrer always said they didn't know where they were, but if we helped him, then he would go out and shut them down. And I personally know he has been doing that, and it's been very effective in some of our communities.
Right.
Because they were coming up overnight. Can you let us know when the workshops are that you're having two times a week?
Yeah, I can pass that information
just
on.
drop in on one of them to see what's there.
Sure.
And could we see the checklist?
Yes, I believe it's online, right, already?
Is it on where? Give me the site.
Well, if it's not on a website right now, it'll be there actually very, very soon. But I can always forward that on to you, no problem.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Very good, very good. Thank you very much.
That's it?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. It's a verbal report, so no public comment.
Okay, move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.